when someone's listened to me for 45 minutes, I like to think that they go away with an alternative view of the world. They go away viewing human beings as having minds that are unique, minds that have a basis in the physical brain, driven by experience, and understanding how that happens at the level of the brain cells. Moreover, they can see how in the future goods and services, education, management, creativity, how people take risks, how all those issues that relate very much to what many companies are concerned with, how those things might be modified by the future. One of the issues that I think people are very interested in is how the screen technology, how the new mentality, both good and bad, how that affects how they communicate with each other. And I'm sure it must be different from people of the book. If you think about it, if you're spending 6 to 10 hours, not just in front of a screen, but also multitasking, the way you process what comes in and the way you marshal what goes out, given the plasticity of the brain, has to be different. One comparison I like to think is a rather strange sounding one, but it seems to work. It works for me at least. It is, in the old days, anyone who ate meat, which was pretty much everyone, would be familiar with either killing the quarry or, at the very least, butchering it, chopping the arms and legs off, skinning it, and all these other unpalatable issues. Now, I say unpalatable because people in the 21st century, and indeed in the latter half of the 20th century, would have recoiled for the most part, even though they like eating meat, skinning, let's say, a rabbit and eating it. They'd much prefer to pluck the cellophane wrapped meat off the market shelf, or at the very least go to the butcher who do it for you and give it to you in a little pack. And when confronted with the prospect possibly of butchering their own meat, would say, oh, I couldn't do that, all that blood and skinning, and oh, that's gross, I couldn't do this. I do eat meat, but I find that gross. Now, I'm not entering here into an argument for vegetarianism, but I want to introduce it just as an analogy. In the old days, people communicated, as we still tend to do, face to face in real time. Now, that's a huge cognitive burden on a brain, because you are marshalling what comes in, which is input not just from the speech and what that means, but from pheromones, these sneaky chemical messengers that exude smells that either turn you on or off someone. You're processing body language. And at the same time, you're trying to listen to the content of the speech. Now, we know this is hard because when people lose their temper or are angry, it's been shown that they're not listening anymore. They cannot listen anymore to what the person is saying. So we know that this is not automatic. This ability to listen to other people and indeed to react to it is very hard because in real time, you are processing all these things, forming a view in order to articulate a response. So this is quite hard for most people, and it's something I would argue that the wonderful adaptive human brain does from an early age when the child is interacting with their parents and their carers and so on. Now, imagine that you are spending a lot of time offline, a lot of time processing through a keyboard where you're not having to do things immediately. You're not having to take in all these different cues, both verbal and non-verbal. You can concentrate on the words or the actions. We know, for example, in Second Life, which is of course devoid of any pheromones or body language, but has merely people doing things, that autistic people are very comfortable and enjoy very much being in Second Life. Autism, let's remember, is a problem where people have an impairment with actually understanding how other people are feeling, where they judge people simply, or they evaluate what's going on simply on what they see on the actions. They can't extrapolate. They can't read the body language of the person to what might be going on different from what they are thinking is going on. And I think it's very interesting, or on the screen continues, that if we are placing people in a scenario that doesn't mandate the ability to read body language or to pick up on pheromones, that skill will never be as honed as it has been heretofore, and that people might be more autistic in the future, more comfortable with the onanistic experience of a screen as opposed to an interactive, highly demanding, in cognitive terms, way of the world. Now, if that's the case, and I think already we're seeing this, people will send emails rather than talk to each other. You'll also have an impact on how you see yourself and your identity. You'll have the option to have a false identity, that of the as well as a collective identity or no identity at all, as you're working from behind your screen. So I think that in the future, it depends on how one wants people to interact. There will be an increasing preference, I would predict, for people wanting to work offline, to have, quote, time to think, or to respond in writing so you have a paper trail, or to enable other people to have a record of what has passed. And laudable in business terms, though all these issues might be, that people have time to think and everyone's aware of what's going on, I think what the price one might pay for that is actually a certain spontaneity and a subtlety and a perspicacity and intuition